Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kimberly Tyson. I'm the Marketing and Program Director with the Embryo Adoption Awareness Center, a division of Nightlight Incorporated. Welcome to today's informational webinar regarding a new embryo storage program offered by Fairfax Cryobank and Nightlight, Inc. Our presenters today will include Mike Buck, the Director of Client Development for Fairfax Cryobank. Mike has his Master of Science degree in Reproductive Physiology from the University of Tennessee. And our second guest is Megan Fabian, the Development and Outreach Manager for Nightlight, Inc. For the past 7 years, Megan has managed the Snowflake's Embryo Donation and Adoption Program for Nightlight, working with fertility clinics throughout the country. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation using the questions you submit through the Q&A feature. You submit your questions at any time during the session, and we will answer as many as possible at the end of the presentation. If you happen to be in the full screen mode, you can click on the question mark icon on the toolbar in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. This will open the Q&A panel on your screen only. To ask questions, simply type your question into the dialog box and click the Send button. When you submit your question, it will be visible to all of the panelists, but not visible to other attendees. Expect the presentation this morning to be fairly brief, and it will give us plenty of time for your questions. So enter your questions at any time during the presentation. We will be distributing a white paper summary of the presentation and a comprehensive list of answers to all the questions submitted today during the webinar. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties during the presentation, please contact WebEx Technical Support directly, and that number is there on the screen. You might want to jot it down. It's 866-229-3239. And as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded today. I'm going to unmute my guests right now as we launch into our presentation. And I thought from the questions we had the last time we presented this program that I needed to add a slide about the purpose of this program. And the purpose is really twofold. It's to help clinics improve patient care and to reduce clinic liabilities. And you're going to be improving patient care because you're going to help your patients make disposition choices about those remaining embryos they have in storage, either at your facility or maybe you've sent them off-site to another cryo facility. It provides your patients who choose donation a low-cost storage alternative, and this ability to direct their donation to a recipient gives them a voice in the future of their remaining embryos, which is important to many of the people who have remaining embryos. It reduces clinic liabilities because it reduces the number of embryos in your clinic storage. It reduces the potential for abandoned embryos by helping patients choose a disposition option instead of continuing to store year over year. And every year that goes by that they're just storing increases the likelihood that you might end up with some abandoned embryos. This also helps you, the clinic, focus on the medical procedures that you are the experts in and not the social-emotional disposition elements that Nightlight and Fairfax can help the patient with. I'm going to turn this over to Mike to tell us a little bit about Fairfax.
Fairfax Cryobank is a division of the Genetics and IVF Institute. We're based in Fairfax, Virginia, hence the Fairfax name. We have facilities here in Austin, Texas, where I'm located. We also have a facility in Philadelphia, and then we also have a sister cryobank, Clinic Labs, which is located in Roseville, Minnesota. We've been storing and shipping reproductive specimens for over 20 years and ship samples, embryos, anywhere in the U.S. and also international shipping too. And I guess we move on to
next slide. Okay.
So next, we also provide donor sperm to patients. We screen and test the sperm donors. We do the full infectious genetic disease testing on these donors. We provide sperm banking for patients who are banking their own sperm for future use. These include patients who are banking prior to cancer treatment, chemotherapy, radiation. We also see quite a few military patients who will bank their sperm prior to deployment, and then also have patients who will bank prior to a vasectomy. And then lastly, we do offer the long-term storage of embryos, and we have the shippers to where we can ship and receive the embryos.
Hey, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Snowflakes program. Snowflakes began in 1997 as the first embryo adoption program operated out of a licensed adoption agency. And just to be clear, Snowflakes is an adoption agency Snowflakes does embryo adoptions, but we're part of Nightlight, which is a larger adoption agency that does international and domestic adoptions. So Snowflake matches families together based on a mutual selection matching criteria. We do not offer medical services, so it's just an adoption agency. We offer the legal part of the adoption as well. We call it embryo adoption because we've incorporated the child-centric best practices of adoption where families are choosing each other. The whole program is focused around the best interests of the child. Home studies are required for the adoptive parents because we believe that the end result is going to be a child, and we need to ensure that we're making the best homes possible for the children. And we help families without discrimination across the nation with donation and adoption services. We've even done some international families from other countries. We certainly work with single moms. There's no age requirement per se. Any requirements that are laid out are just have to do with completing a home study and being able to carry a baby or having a contract with a surrogate. So we do with families that use surrogates. We have about an average of 80 transfers every year, and over the past 13 years or so, we've had 292 children born, even a few more because that's just the end of 2011. So we had several born in January and early February. And then over the years, we've matched 520 donors with 360 recipients, and you'll see the donor number is higher because sometimes recipients over the course of their adoption will match with multiple donors, and then that has resulted in about 675 transfers. So it is a thriving program, and we always have new donors and new recipients signing up every week. So,
all right, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem? We really have been working with clinics throughout the country, with adoption agencies throughout the country. We receive calls from donors and adopters, and kind of have found that there are three areas of where is the problem. There's a problem of indecisiveness, there's a problem for storage, and there's a problem with liability to the clinics. And the patients have remaining embryos. They're indecisive about what to do with them. Right now there's over 600,000 embryos in frozen storage based on some research that was done in 2011. And we know that those embryos are supposedly being held for the use of those who had them created for themselves. But what we have also been finding is that sometimes it's just easier not to make a decision rather than to make a choice regarding the disposition of their embryos. Just a moment, I'm going to clear my throat. Yeah, I didn't do that into the microphone. Hello. Okay, patients, they become unwilling or unable to pay for their embryo storage costs, and they need some motivation and some education regarding disposition choices that are available to them. Regarding storage, I mentioned already the number of embryos in storage throughout the country. This is a 54% increase over the previous census that had been completed by SART-RAND back in 2002, which many of you are familiar with. And we talk to clinics throughout the country, as I mentioned, and there are some clinics that report over a 20% abandoned embryos in storage rate. A huge liability for a clinic. So on-site embryo storage costs continue continue to increase, the administration of more and more embryos that have to be stored, the facilities to store them. And although ASRM does have some guidelines which allow for the discarding of embryos after 5 years, there are many clinics who do not discard abandoned embryos because of the fear of legal ramifications from that. So we're going to come up with some solutions to those problems for you. So one of them is to provide your patients with a low-cost storage alternative if they make the choice to give their embryos to another family. So the patient could receive information from your clinic regarding their disposition choices and this low-cost storage alternative. It is only $350, and we'll go more into that in a moment. Embryos are removed from your clinic and moved over to the Fairfax storage facility, and then the patient is working with Snowflakes to choose a family to receive their embryos, and when that match is made, Snowflakes works directly with Fairfax to arrange the shipment of those embryos to the clinic of the recipient family.
Okay, so how does it work? The patients, first of all, will need to choose to donate their embryos to their family. So this is something that they would be doing before the embryos are shipped to Fairfax. They have considered their different disposition options and have chosen to donate them to another person. Then the donor contacts Snowflakes and completes a Snowflakes application. That's something they can get via email if they connect with one of us here, or they can get right off the internet, and they just download the application, fill it out, and submit it to Snowflakes. And then Snowflakes reviews the application and also helps the family who's donating the embryos do the donor eligibility determination. The clinic is not responsible for the donor eligibility determination. The clinic would only be to release the embryos to be shipped to Fairfax. So the patient does the application, and the clinic doesn't have to do the donor eligibility determination. The next step is Mike.
Yeah. So with Fairfax's involvement, the client would then contact Fairfax Cryobank and complete a storage agreement, the Snowflake Embryo Storage Agreement, and the other associated forms. Fairfax would then facilitate the embryo transfer by contacting the current storage facility where the embryos are currently stored, and we would coordinate and schedule the shipment of the embryos to Fairfax. Fairfax would send a shipper tank overnight to the clinic, along with the FedEx air bill to send the tank back priority overnight. The day, the $350, which would cover the shipping to Fairfax and the 1 year of storage. The clinic would need to pay anything, or they would just coordinate the shipment as long as there are release forms to release the embryos to us. We coordinate and schedule everything on our end.
Next step is matching. So once the embryos are at Fairfax, simultaneously, the donor will have an interview with our social worker at Snowflakes, and they'll review the criteria for matching. So the donor gets to say whether or not they'd like a married couple or a single mom or either or. They can pick the educational background, the ethnic background, the religious background, all types of criteria, including the level of contact the donor wants to have with the recipient during the adoption and afterwards. So these are very important things to the donor families. It helps them have a sense of control over the outcome and what's going to happen with their remaining embryos. They get to feel they are picking the best family possible for these embryos. Snowflakes matches the donors with potential recipients, and so the donor gets to review a profile of a recipient that's looking for embryos, and the donor gets to say yes or no if they would like to match with the recipient. once a recipient is selected by the donor, then the recipient also gets to review the donor profile, and they have a say in whether or not they want to accept the match. And once a match is made, Snowflakes provides the legal contract, and this contract is for the donor to sign and for the recipient to sign, and it legally transfers ownership between the two parties. So the clinic is not responsible for the legal side of this donation, and Fairfax is also not responsible for the legal side. Snowflakes takes responsibility for that and provides the contract to both parties involved.
Lastly, once Snowflakes finds a recipient for the embryos, then the storage client would sign an embryo release with Fairfax Cryobank authorizing the shipment of the embryos to the recipient's clinic. The cryobank will then coordinate with the receiving clinic and shipment of the embryos from Fairfax Cryobank to the receiving clinic. Once we receive the embryos from the original clinic, we also request all of the original documents, the infectious disease testing, the embryo records. So once we have them and they find a recipient and we're going to ship to the recipient's clinic, the original freezing facility is sort of out of the loop. We'll send all of the original freezing paperwork to the recipient's clinic. And then the flake covers the cost of all the shipping out of storage into the recipient's clinic on that end.
Correct. And the recipient will complete their FET, and Snowflakes typically will notify the donors of the outcome if they want to know. Of course, if they didn't want to know, we would keep that information private. Most donors do choose to know, and Snowflakes will be the liaison for that communication. The donor might also choose that they would like to keep in touch with the recipients directly, and if both parties have that same desire, we can put them in touch with each other, and then they can be in touch directly about the outcome of the frozen embryo transfers, etc. So here are some details. Every program that's new and has a process, you have several details. So to review, this storage program is available to patients who choose to donate the embryos to another person. So if the patient wants to keep the embryos stored long term, that is a different option that they can choose. But this storage program with the reduced storage fee of $350 is for patients who have chosen to donate their embryos to another person. Nightlight and Fairfax will provide promotional materials and advertising. So if you want your patients to have access to this option, well, not access, but you want them to know about it, we would be happy to provide you with some materials that you can distribute maybe during your cycles or when patients store embryos for the first time, or at some appropriate time that you decide you can distribute the materials that we are happy to provide to you at no cost to you. The clinic will promote the program with the patients. So this is something that you would be responsible for letting your patients know about and promoting the program to them so that they can be motivated to make a decision and encouraged that there is a low-cost storage option if they do want to donate their embryos to another patient. A patient completes the donor application with Snowflakes, and Snowflakes begins the matching process. So once their decision is made, the first step they need to do is contact Snowflakes. That way, Snowflakes knows that the donor is serious about donating their embryos to another person. They then will complete our application, and we let Fairfax know that we have a donor who is donating through Snowflakes and wants to store with Fairfax. And then that gives Fairfax the green light to go ahead and coordinate the shipment, get the embryos over, and now the patient has been locked into the low-cost storage option. Fairfax works directly with the patient and the clinic to move the embryos. So Fairfax distributes some paperwork to the patient to sign as their storage agreement, and then the clinic and Fairfax work together to make a good arrangement for shipping, dictating the date and when the shipper will arrive and things like that. I also want to clarify that if a patient decides to donate their embryos to another family or person, signs up with Snowflakes, and then moves their embryos to Fairfax, and then has second thoughts, maybe later on down the road, or just decides to change their mind, that is fine. They are not signing up forever to donate their embryos through Snowflakes. They can change their mind. This isn't something that they are locked into doing if they have a change of heart. So how does it cost? The cost to the patient is $350, and that includes the first year of storage with Fairfax Cryobank. And to date, all of the patients that have signed up for this option have been matched within the year. Nobody is renewing the storage contract at the end of the year because their embryos have been donated. Shipping from the clinic to Fairfax Cryobank, including the use of the dry shipper, is included in that $350. It includes storage in the state-of-the-art Fairfax Cryobank facility, and no additional fees for removing their embryos from storage at Fairfax. Once embryos are in, and they paid the $350, it covers the whole year or any portion thereof, and there is no fee to the donor to remove the embryos. That fee, which there is obviously going to be FedEx involved with, shipping the embryos to a new facility, that fee is covered by the Snowflakes program. The $300 is a cost for renewing the storage annually. So if the embryos are in Fairfax Cryobank for an entire year and they have not been matched for some reason or other, and the patient wants to continue storage, the cost is $300 for the following year. And just to clarify, $350 for the first year and the shipment it's not pro-ratable, so you can't store them for just 6 months and then have them donated and get some money back. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Mike?
For some clinics out there, we also offer just long-term storage for patients. So if your clinic is mounting, either doesn't have space for embryos just in general, that you're looking for an alternative for long-term storage for your embryos, Fairfax Cryobank does offer that. Or if you want the liability of storing these embryos, we can work with you on that. It's a separate program from the Snowflakes donation program. Here, patients would contact Fairfax directly. We would work with them, have them fill out the paperwork, the storage paperwork, contact the clinic, and then have the embryos transferred here for long-term storage. The cost of that would be $95 for the first year of storage. It would be $210, which would include the shipping of the embryos from the clinic to Fairfax Cryobank. If they're looking to do a frozen embryo transfer and want the embryos shipped back to the clinic, we can ship them back to the clinic, and it would be the shipping of the $210 plus the handling fee, and they would be shipped back to the clinic. Also, other options, the patients can select month-to-month payment for storage. We have a 2-year option and also a 5-year storage option.
Thank you, Mike. So it would be good to summarize what the advantages of using a program like this might be for your patients and for your clinic. First and foremost, patients are finally making a choice regarding the disposition of their remaining embryos. And the choice is finalized, and it's expertly managed by those who are involved in this process. This is, as I saw, a very low-cost storage alternative for those who choose to donate their embryos to another recipient. The participation obviously is cost-effective, and the process is very simple. And Fairfax Cryobank makes it simple to get the embryos back out of storage at no cost to the patient. I know that many of you may be familiar with other programs where there's actually a cost to the patient to get their embryos out of storage once it is put into the long-term storage facility. That is not the case with this particular program. The advantages for your clinic is that it reduces the number of embryos in storage at your clinic facility. It helps your patients make a decision regarding their remaining embryos. It reduces the cost and administration of billing and keeps track of patient contact information for you, and the cost of keeping track of that on the long term, the risk of abandonment, which I probably have on the next slide. It reduces the liability to your clinic for long-term storage, eliminates legal contract responsibility regarding embryo ownership, and it transfers the future contact responsibility between the donor and the recipient to the agency, which we think is a very nice benefit to donors choosing recipients because they are known to one another and the genetically related offspring are known by both of the families, so that future contact between that offspring be limited to a familial relationship rather than just happenstance meeting in the future. And as more and more people are using gamete donation for the building of their families, there really need to be more and more controls put into place to enable people to know about one another. And you may or may not be familiar with the donor sibling registry, which is a big service now available on the internet for people who were born through gamete donation, try and find siblings that they may have out there in the universe. So with that, we have talked about brochure options that are available. We do already have an embryo disposition brochures that many clinics around the country have been using, especially when they're sending out their billing information regarding storage. We have those available. We're still in the process of creating a new brochure regarding this particular program, but when that is made available, we'll be sending that out to clinics for your use. And Fairfax also, Mike talked about the program that is available for anyone who would like to store at Fairfax, regardless whether they want to donate to another person or not. Here's some of the contact information, and you don't need to quickly scribble all this stuff down because we will be sending out a copy of the presentation, and so you will have that contained therein. And I would like to encourage you to submit any questions that you may have. Like I said, the last time we presented this, we had a big flurry of questions, but we did redesign the presentation, and so maybe it eliminated the questions, but I hope not. I hope that you will submit your questions and send them off in that Q&A feature that I described earlier and is described again here. I would to let you know that the Awareness Center is offering our webinars at no charge, so you can audit all of our webinars. What we are doing is for those who would like to receive a certificate that can then be submitted to the accrediting body of your choice for CEU credit, we are charging a nominal fee for sending out those certificates. So if there's a topic that we're offering in the future that you would just like to sit in and listen on, there's no charge for those. A couple of our future events that are coming up are on Wednesday, March 15th. We are going to have Dr. Jeffrey Nelson from the HRC Fertility in Orange County, California, come and talk about embryo quality and cryopreservation. And so we're excited to have Dr. Nelson join us for that. And then on Wednesday, April 18th, we're going to have a very wordy presentation called Psychological Consultations, Educating Patients and Clients About Embryo Donation and Adoption. We have Dr. Marie Davidson with the Illinois Fertility Centers and Jana Rupnow, who is with the University Medical Center, talking to us about the need for counseling to patients both who are potential donors and potential adopters. So those are some upcoming events that you might want to get on your calendar. And you can register for any of those events at embryoadoption.org. And I am not seeing any questions. So I will, there have one, yay. So here they're coming in fast and furiously now. So I will read the question, and Mike and Megan will figure out who's best to answer them, okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, the first is administrative question, so we will handle that one offline. How long does the process of shipping embryos and the medical records from a clinic to Fairfax generally take?
A good question. We have seen that families who apply to Snowflakes and want this option, it can be as fast as about a month between the time they apply and the time their embryos are shipped to Fairfax. A lot is dependent on how quickly they fill out their application materials. So once the application is complete, the coordination of shipment to Fairfax is very quick.
As far as on our end, once we have the paperwork, we'll contact the clinic. We generally ship out or send out the shippers on a Monday. The clinic will receive the shipper on a Tuesday, load the embryos, and send it back overnight to us. So we get it pretty quick. It's just coordinating with the lab on shipping it. And once we have the paperwork, the transfer coordination of it is fast.
You know, calls. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
We call sometimes from patients who want to donate their embryos, and a lot of times they're sitting there looking at their storage bill, and they have discussed amongst themselves that they do not want to store the embryos any longer or just can't afford the storage anymore. So they'll contact Snowflakes, and when they find that they can, in as quickly as a month, fill out the Snowflakes paperwork and have their embryos removed from storage and stored at Fairfax for just $350. They're very happy with that option. We've seen a lot of people opt for that.
Do we have, I'm sure you guys have a sense of how many people have used this option to date?
About a dozen or so. Just since we started offering it, maybe 6 months or so ago. What do you think, Mike?
It's really picked up since we started publicizing it and getting the word out there. Was talking about it before this webinar, and we've got within the past couple of weeks, I've gotten at least 5 who we've gotten the paperwork or we're shipping them out. Like I said earlier, it's really working well for these patients. Once they come here, we have many that have been the full year. They're finding a match, and we're shipping it out to the clinic. Everything's been going really smoothly. The numbers have been picking up,
right?
Which is good.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we must have reworded our presentation has clarified this very simple process, because I think that's all the questions that we have. Okay. We thank everyone who has joined us today. We hope that you will be willing to speak to your patients about this option that is available to them. Please contact the Embryo Adoption Awareness Center directly if you would like to get some materials to help you in that. And this webinar has been recorded, and we will be posting that on our website as well. So you could actually have your patients come to our website to watch this particular webinar, which is very short, so that might be a great way to educate patients as well. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your week.